Welcome to the Global Rugby and Sports Podcast, where we dive deep into the world of sports, exploring the journeys of your favourite personalities, athletes and legends. Each episode we'll bring you candid conversations that reveal the stories behind the stats, the challenges behind the triumphs, and the passion that drives these incredible individuals. Our podcast offers an intimate glimpse into the lives of those who inspire us all. Tune in for insights, entertainment, and the human side of sport.
Hey guys, today I'm privileged and honoured to present you the first episode of the Global Rugby and Sports Podcast. We are kicking off with a very special guest, double World Cup winner, All Black great, 47 tests, 130 Super Rugby caps, the man himself, Ben Franks. Delighted to have you here, Ben. How's it?
Yeah, good. Thanks for having us on. Honoured to be your first guest.
Cheers, mate. We really appreciate it. We're all super stoked. A bit nervous, but it's going to be great. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, without further ado, let's get into it. First questions.
All right. What was life like for Ben Franks growing up, and what were some of your earliest rugby memories, Ben?
Had a good childhood. Grew up in Motueka, so top of the South Island, just in a pretty small country town. I suppose, well, it's like that's typical sort of New Zealand rugby childhood. Started playing sort of around 6-7 years, and played through the age groups. I just remember that sort of stuff. Playing with my mates from school, and that's pretty much it. Like any sort of rugby kid in New Zealand, your life sort of revolves around weekend sports.
Yep. Yeah, cool. Was your family, your dad, your mum and dad, were they real supportive and big into the whole when you first got into it? And
yeah, I got I think it was Dad took me down to the Huia rugby clubs for registration when I was six or seven, and they were into it. And then obviously Owen's a few years younger than me, so between the two of us, he started pretty early too. So like it just becomes your weekends, and then through high school, you go in between the games, and you play Wednesday rugby, Saturday rugby. Even in high school, there's a little bit of rugby league in there, and all the other sports that go with it. So my parents were heavily involved in it. Like everyone, they were chaperoning us everywhere, and then later on, Dad was, would be out there helping us train and practice and stuff. Yeah.
How did you go with
any other sports?
Not too much. Like I did a little bit of cricket. It's not for me. Like I'm not. I don't have much patience. Even now, so cricket, it's not my sport. But yeah, did a little bit. Everyone in New Zealand at the time. You do summer and touch. Again, touch ain't my sport either, so I just hung out for winter. So winter, winter. I was very much a rugby kid. A little bit when I went to high school. The high school I was at, they had a rugby league team. So towards the end of the, when the rugby finished, there was a few games of rugby league. So, and actually when I first started, my younger years when rugby was touch and I just wanted to play tackle, I played rugby league for a few years. So pretty much mainly just rugby. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So what position did you play when you played a bit of league?
Prop, second row it was. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so I haven't strayed very far from like prop. Just found a position I liked and I just stayed. So,
Stuck with it.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy playing league more than union, or obviously you're a great union player, but how'd you go in playing league back in the younger years?
Well, when I was a kid, I enjoyed it because Dad changed me from from rugby to league when it was touch, because I guess I was a shy kid, and the kid that gets the ball was the one that can just go in and get it really, and I just stand out. So they put me into league, which was tackle. So got more involved, and I enjoyed that. I was a bigger kid, younger. So I enjoyed the league, and then like I said, when I went to high school, I was at a high school called Aranui High School in Christchurch, and they had a really good rugby league team, and lots of really good rugby league players. And there's just a couple of seasons sort of at the end, play a couple of games. But I enjoyed it. Like it's fun just to be able to make a heap of tackles, carry the ball. But very much in my high school, like I said, they were all rugby league guys and really good rugby league guys, But I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I'd like to talk to you about your Test debut back in 2010. How did it? I mean, obviously it was your Test debut, and how did you feel in that moment, like going on as an All Black?
I wasn't too bad, to be honest, because 2008 I went away on an India tour with the All Blacks, and I played my first game. It wasn't a test, but it was my first game for the All Blacks against Munster. And for that, I was really nervous. First time putting the All Black jersey on. So even though that wasn't a test, to me, that sort of felt that was my first game, because you don't get your first back. That was the first time, the anthem, putting the jersey on. So I was pretty nervous for that. 2009, I had an injury in my foot that pretty much kept me out of the whole season. And then, 2010, I got to get my first test match. But that test, I felt pretty good. Like I sort of knew a bit more what to expect and handle a little better. But it was a good occasion. It was good to, like anyone, get your first test match. Managed to somehow score a try that game too, so I sort of got the test and the try ticked off really quick. But that's everyone, because everyone always asks you about your your first test match, and I always consider, even though it wasn't a test match, to me my game against Munster, that's what I sort of hold on to, as my sort of first All Black memories.
About 10 years old, and I always remember there was these two massive front rowers, and I was like, damn, who are they? Like they're massive, as a young guy, I thought that was just so cool watching you guys go at it. And that was one of my earliest All Black memories. And what was it? It was like a massive win, wasn't it? Like 6-0 or something? Or
Yeah, we don't need to talk about the win.
Massive win.
I think you just had someone sinbinned. It was the number 8 got sinbinned early. But it was great memory, and there's a few of us. I think Sam Whitelock might have had his first test that game. There's a few guys I played along with sort of that year, got a few tests, and we sort of stayed together as a bit of a group, through the next sort of 8 years or so, sort of up to 2015. So, it was good memories.
Am I right in saying that you debuted in the front row alongside your brother in that game?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I don't even remember that. I was trying to think. There's other people that debuted. Yeah, Owen. I think Owen. No, actually, Owen went away. So I was injured. So he got his test in 2009. But Owen was at tight end. I was at loose end. So
going into your early, just your career in general, and obviously you played for Canterbury, 2005 made your debut, and then obviously you made the switch to Tasmania later, and obviously we're a Canterbury Crusader. But where did the decision of leaving the Crusaders, to the Canes come about? Like, how did it all come about? What was the ins and outs of that?
Yeah, it was. It sort of come about last minute, really. I think I made the decision after. I'm trying to think. I was at the Canes 15, 14, 15. Yes, after the 2012 season, I'd actually just extended my contract with the Crusaders. So, I grew up in Canterbury, dreamed of playing for the Crusaders. Always thought, I'd never leave the Crusaders. It was never really the intention. But it really come about more. So for the All Blacks, I covered two positions. So I covered loose head and tight head a lot. And then at the Crusaders at the time, it was me, Owen, and Wyatt Crockett, and I was covering the positions then. So for a number of years, probably about 3 or 4 years in a row, I'd play one game tight head, the next game loose head, the third game. So I'd start loose head, start tight head, and then I'd have a game on the bench and come on for whatever, and we sort of had a rotation between the three of us for a while, which worked quite well, and it actually helped me a lot with the All Blacks because I covered that. It helped me get good at doing that. But then I just got to the end of 1 year and I just felt a bit worn out, as in, I just want to go and just have a part of my year where I could just play one position.
Looking for that stability kind of thing.
Yeah, I just, no, I don't know if it's the stability because, professional sport, it's not really much stable about it, and it's sort of one of the things I sort of enjoy about it a little bit. But yeah, I just felt I just needed to play one position to help me to grow and to help me stay, help me give me an edge, help me to still be able to be selected as an All Black, because you. So yes, I went to the Canes. And I actually had a really good time. Like, again, I would have never, a year before, actually probably a month before I made the decision, I never thought I would ever leave Crusaders. But, I just thought, no, I need to change. And it was a really good change, actually. Had a great time up at the Canes for a few years. And I said, I always consider myself a Crusader. And I'm glad I got to experience that, but for my career, it was a good thing.
What would you say were the main differences? Culture-wise, the rugby obviously huge changes, or was the Canes and the Crusaders, elite rugby teams, and the standards are there. So how do you find it?
Well, the Crusaders were very much sort of ingrained around the winning. Like up till then, we already had a number of championships, and that culture. That culture was there even before I got to the Crusaders. And then when I went to the Canes, they were trying to build that. They hadn't won a competition up till then. They'd always had a lot of flair, but not a lot of consistency, probably in performance. So I suppose that's probably the difference. Culturally a little different. The South Island's a bit different to different parts of the North Island. You know what I mean?
Yeah, of course. Of course.
But what sort of stuck out to me, like I said, I grew up a Crusader. I had a passion for being a Crusader, and that was one of the things I thought, going to the Hurricanes, like I can't be a fake. You can't just bring fake passion. I can't just turn up the first day and go, let's go Hurricanes. But I just remember turning up and just seeing, how passionate a lot of those guys were. Just trying, Dane Coles, Victor Vito, Chris Eden. There's tons of guys. Julian Savere. They just had a lot, and I just seen how passionate they were for the team. And then that sort of, I just brought into that. So, and like I said, I had a great time, and it was. I really enjoyed it.
I don't know if you remember this. I know I actually watched this game at the time. I was, again, a young chap. Blues building up phases. Right wing, Frank Hillai down the right wing, pincing down the right wing, absolutely gunning it. And all of a sudden you come in chop the man down. You remember that? You want to say much about that? Like, do you remember it?
Oh yeah, I definitely remember it. Yeah, prop highlights usually are scrums and pick and go tries. So yeah, definitely remember it. I really enjoyed that season. Like I said, the Canes was enjoyable. It's a different type of rugby. Definitely a little bit more flair. So I enjoyed that. I was definitely real motivated when I was up there. But yeah, in terms of that tackle, he beats me in a race every day of the week. So
Or not?
I'm not pretending. I wasn't. I was never a slow prop, as in terms of props. I was always, speed wise okay, but I think I just read the play early and cut him off. But yeah.
As a prop, when you see a skinny outside back down the line, what's your first instinct? Is it I'm getting that man, or is it nah, the winger's got him?
I think at that level you've got to have confidence in yourself. You got to back yourself. You can't be out there thinking,
sure.
you're not looking at, here's a winger, here's that. But if I was defending and I'm up against the back, I've got strengths, he's got strengths, he's got speed. He'll probably have some good footwork. I'll back my strength and size. So if I get him, I've got some advantages too. So you need to. You just got to be a bit smarter, and like I said, you got to be able to read plays early to get that advantage. So yeah, in terms of that play, I just read it early, and it was I had to run as fast as that. That was my max speed ever.
You just had a second wind, like I don't know. It's like adrenaline just kicked in at that moment, and you're just wide-eyed looking at that. Yeah. That was good.
What do you think was the biggest difference you felt when making the jump from Super Rugby, obviously, up to Test Rugby, like to the Test arena?
Probably just, I don't know, maybe a little bit of speed.
Yeah.
I think it's just every level you go up, it's just a different level of pressure and expectations and Test rugby's are one-offs. They're like a final. Every game is like a final. It's not so that brings a bit of a different aspect to it. As in Super Rugby, it's a tournament, and you do need to perform to your best, the best you can every week. But it's over so many games. 16 games or whatever. Isn't with the All Blacks, it's it's named a test for a reason. It's a test. It's a one-off, and the All Blacks. One of the best things about the All Blacks is the expectation they perform and they win every game. So I suppose is it more physical? I think everyone at that you enjoy. I always enjoyed their physicality, their speed. Maybe a little bit faster, but. I think it's just more around their expectations and being able to, and the pressure and being able to still go out and play the way you did to get you there. Is probably the biggest difference. Yeah.
Do you feel the pressure a lot more when you're playing Test rugby with the All Blacks, as opposed to when you were in your Super Rugby days?
Well, I think it's like the more you do it, you just become accustomed to the pressure, and then you learn how to deal with the pressure. Again, early days, NPC, Super Rugby, the nerves are always there, but you become accustomed to the nerves, and so I suppose the All Blacks, like the expectation, the nerves are always there, but you learn how to manage them and use them. So as a strength, not as something to fear. Yeah.
Interesting fact, Ben. I'm a bit of a stats guy myself. You know, I run a social page, and I've got a pretty good aspect on stats. But just check before, you got a 92% win record in the black jersey. I personally don't know if there's a player who has a high record with that. You know, that sort of test. Like, that's genuine. That's impressive. That's ridiculous.
Right up there.
What do you reckon? Like, do you reckon you played a big part in that, or do you reckon you were lucky to be in a great team? Like, what do you reckon about that era of the All Blacks? Do you think that was just like, you know, a lot of people say now, like, we watch an All Black team that, you know, they might win, they won 10 out of 14 games this year, but do you think that All Black team you played in was just the most amazing All Black team ever, or how you compare it to the modern day?
Well, in terms of the 92% win record.
92, yeah.
Yeah, that definitely wasn't all down to me. Maybe I was just picked and choose the test, so you know. No, I played my part in a great era of the All Blacks. You know, through leading up to 2011. Through to 2015, you know, it was just a really good. I'm fortunate to have been a part of that, and definitely played my part in it. But I was one of many guys, and I think there was a core group of us through that. But then there was lots of guys who, whether they were there for a year or 2 years or whatever, you know, also played their part too, because it's all competition, and that competition, you know, made us good as a group. But I think sometimes you don't know how good something is, you know, when you're in it until you look back and you look on some of the stuff you do, because with sport you always, you got this weekend and then you move on to the next weekend, and next weekend moves on, and before you know it's months, years, and then you're done. And you know, you move through it pretty quick, but yeah, that was definitely a special period in All Black history, and you know, I'm glad I played my part in it.
Yeah, no, like just growing up as a young chap, and I say, you know, 2009, 2010 sort of era, I would have been about, you know, 9, 10 years old, and just growing up watching you guys, I almost thought you guys are, you know, undefeatable, like invincible. Like, you guys were just such an amazing team, and every aspect of that team functioned to such a high level. You know, there wasn't really a area in that team where that lacked. You know, like, we knew the front row was solid, we knew the locks were going to win ball, we knew the loose forwards did their job, and the backline did their thing. Like, it was pretty incredible to watch. So, it was cool. It was bloody good to watch, and I know that you played a huge part in that, mate.
Yeah, we had a lot of great guys, and like I said, there's a core group of us that stayed through that period. But there was a lot of guys in and around that, and we just had really good competition. You know, like, you know, I know for myself, I was very much aware. You know, I had to perform at a high level. I had to, you know, push myself to be able to stay amongst that group, and you know, the results were, you know, good. Like, it definitely wasn't easy, but we just had a good group, and good coaches, good everything. We all sort of thrived off each other, and were able to do some great things.
No, it's great.
Just on 2011, how did you find out that you were being selected for the World Cup, and how were your emotions in that?
Yeah, that was actually pretty. That would be right up there, probably one of the toughest years I've been in, because I think we had the earthquakes that year in Christchurch, and for the Crusaders, we played away every game. You know, we travelled to London for one game. I think we had to play a semi-final in Cape Town, and then narrowly lost the final. And then went from that selected 2 groups. So there was a group who were pretty much the starting 15, or who they thought the starting 15 was. And then they picked another group of us, we had sort of like a mini championship between South Africa and Aussie, and we had a few tests. So, I was playing in those, and we lost the last test match to South Africa in South Africa. And the day after the test match, it was pretty much, stay in your hotel rooms, and if you get a call, if you've made it, you go to this room, and if you haven't made it, you go to this room. And there was 2 separate buses that left the hotel.
Wow.
A bus of guys who went back to New Zealand who didn't make it, and I think we went to Australia. So, and that was probably a good, couple of months of competing and those tests before we even got to the All Black game. So, until we even got into the tournament, So, stressful, but that's just part of. That's sport, That is.
Yeah.
Little question regarding that whole thing, just about the bus thing. Obviously, your mates and you got your own career to form and pave your own way. But when you see it, maybe a Crusaders mate or something who's not quite made the cut, how does that reflect in the team environment, or even you personally, or is it obviously is that's just part of professional sport and you just kind of got to live with it, or?
Well, you definitely have empathy for the person, you're putting your heart and soul into this, and it comes around every 4 years, and some guys, it might have been through injury or form or there's a lot of good guys that missed out just because you had great guys in that position.
Simple as that.
But that is sport. It is selection and performance, and sometimes things are clear cut, and sometimes the margins are really small. Even me being a coach now and selections, it's not an easy decision. It's the players never. It's not a personal thing, but you're getting evaluated and judged constantly, and that's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
When you decided to leave New Zealand rugby and head overseas to England, what sparked that decision, or what was behind that decision?
Well, I always wanted to play in Europe, so I'd always knew, and I think straight away after the 2011 World Cup, I knew I wanted to try and compete and have another go at going to another World Cup. So, but leading up to 2015, probably 2013, I knew, look, give it everything you got up to here, and then it's time for something different. And sort of over the travel a little bit. There's a lot of things that go into professional sport. It's not, you've got game day and you've got to perform, but, there's commitments around travel and sponsors and a lot of stuff, and it's got to be done. You can't whinge and moan about it, but I just got to a point where I didn't want to travel as much, and I wanted to go and play in Europe and extend my career that way. So, it wasn't a hard decision, no.
So, what brought you to the Saints? Like, what was the
Well,
draw
I went to London Irish first, and I had a coach, Glenn Delaney, who I'm actually working for now. He's my boss. Okay. But he'd come out to an All Black. He'd actually, my club in Christchurch is Linwood. He was a Linwood old boy. He come out. He was coaching in the UK. He was doing some development work with the All Blacks, and we got talking, and we kept in touch. And as they do clubs, when you're looking, your name comes up, and we stayed in contact. And so first I went to London Irish for 3 years, and really enjoyed that in London. And then Chris Boyd, who I was with at Hurricanes, went to Northampton, and I'd ended my time with London Irish and ended up at the Saints. The Premiership in England, or actually a lot of European rugby, I don't think a lot of New Zealanders have I suppose they don't get to see it a lot because the games are early in the morning, but I think they'll be surprised at a lot of the support those teams get, and the atmosphere to it. It's got a real nice mix between club rugby and the professionalism, because they are clubs.
Yeah.
Like Northampton, that stadium is full all the time. Even pre-season games we play, we get a great following. And then, if you're playing Leicester Tigers in one of the derby games, awesome atmosphere.
Yeah.
Playing down at Bath, Gloucester, anywhere, they're awesome. And then you get to go and play in Europe, and you go to any of the French games. People are lucky enough to see those or even experience them. That's like a big festival. You're going to have bands playing, and the whole town will be out for it. So, going to Europe was great. I really enjoyed it. It was great, especially for for a forward. Yeah.
Oh, it's great to hear that you had a good experience there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think were the biggest differences in general when just living in the UK compared to New Zealand? Like culture-wise, or
culturally, not too bad going to Europe, because we have a lot of European influence in New Zealand. It's not as crazy as coming to Japan. I'll tell you that there's more culture coming to Japan. But I think just when you move somewhere, there's just lots of things that can be a bit frustration early on. You got to set up bank accounts and bits and pieces. The thing that's easy in New Zealand is I just think you're a phone call away from having something done.
Yeah.
And that is not. I think I took that for granted. I can talk to my neighbour and get something done, or I can go on an app in New Zealand and do anything on my bank. As in, we think New Zealand, a small country, might be behind the times, but no, I think technology-wise, it is so easy something to do. I remember when I first moved to London, and to set up a bank account, I had to book an appointment and go and sit there for an hour to fill out paper. And then they give you about 10 different passcodes you forget straight away. Everything's paper, and even in Japan, everything's paper. It's so a lot of stuff. Yeah, I think that was the biggest thing. Is New Zealand, it's just so easy to get stuff done.
You there.
Yeah. But after you get that sort of stuff out of the way, it's just there's some great stuff, especially in Europe. I remember at London Irish we had a weekend off, and we're just in the championship talking. Hey, what are you up to? And one of the players said to me, "Oh, I'm going to Barcelona," and in my head I'm thinking, Barcelona, shit, that's a long way to go. It's only a few hour flight away.
Yeah.
It's also crap.
Travel, in Europe, you're so close, and all these different cultures are so accessible. It's great.
Just regarding the whole thing in England as well. Obviously, you played Super Rugby for he played 130 games, across the Hurricanes and the Crusaders. But how did you find the main difference purely in the rugby? Obviously, for a front row forward and just coaching wise, styles wise, tactics wise, do you reckon the quality is right up there? Like it's right up there, or?
It's definitely right up there, and it's a different challenge. Super Rugby, Super Rugby's changed a lot, so I can only really compare it to my experience with it. But Super Rugby's a bit of a sprint. It's 14 games. You can't really afford to drop too many, or you're not really in the hunt. And you sort of want to play every game. Well, that's what I thought, because you've only got so many games to perform to get yourselves into the finals, but then you've only got so many games to show yourself to get selected for the All Blacks. Now in Europe, there's 20, could be up to 26, 28 games. It could be 30 plus games once you add in the European stuff. So you can go from your premiership, and then the premiership will break for a couple of weeks, and you go into your European competition, and then you go back to premiership, and then if you can, so it is a longer season, and that is tough. That is real tough, and you start in the summer months, and then the style of rugby changes once you get into Christmas and it's winter. You go into the game becomes a lot of scrums, a lot of mauls, kicking, and then you come back into spring, and then the game opens up again, once you get into finals. So, there's a lot of different challenges to it. It's hard to compare the two, but they were tough. It was
tough.
It was tough rugby,
Yeah, bro, 100%. Pretty generic question, but any advice for any young aspiring front rowers and young forwards out there?
Well, I think the main thing is, if we're talking, if you're talking you just want to play rugby, which is perfectly fine, just enjoy it. That's about there's a lot in that. When I go back home and I watch, Hui, my local rugby team, and I see the guys working all day and they're going there because they just love it, and they do the couple of trainings and game. That's great. Just just enjoy it and that. Now, if you want to be a professional, then that's different. That's different. You got to apply the same mindset and mentality you would to a job. And not just a job, like a job that you want to be. Because if you're talking about professional, you want to be an All Black, or a job you want to be the best at. So make the decision. Do you want to do this and just have fun with your mates and without that? And if you want to do that, it's fine. Now, if you want to make a decision to be a professional, then it changes. The mentality changes a bit. So I think that would be my first advice. Know what you're signing up for, because then your reasoning for doing whatever will be easy, will be clearer. So it won't be easy, it will be clearer. Yeah.
It's never easy, is it?
Well, nothing worth achieving is easy, but the decision will be clearer, because if I'm going, hey, like everyone has different work-ons. If your work-ons, you need to be putting on weight and you need to be eating 6 times a day. Well, if you want to be a professional and you want to be the best, you go 6 times a day. Sweet, tell me what to eat.
Yeah.
Now, if you're not in there, you're like, 6 times, how am I going to do that? If I'm telling you, got to be in the gym. You got to be also working on your skills, your catch pass, clean out, defense. You got to be reviewing. You got to be watching games. Now, if you've made that decision, you're awesome. Let's do it. Well, then that's a clear decision to make. Now, if you don't, but you still want to play rugby and that, well, then that's fine too. But there's just a different. It's a different game.
Yeah.
I just want to take it back a step. How did the decision to retire come about, and was it hard to kind of transition yourself out of the game?
Yes. That's the best way to answer that. Again, the same way as I knew it was the right time to leave New Zealand, just on gut. I just had a gut feeling it was time to retirement, and a couple of things. I'd started to develop a little bit of, had a neck injury. I'm 36. COVID come in, and and I didn't want to. I never wanted to be going contract to contract, just overstaying my well. I didn't want to leave the game hating it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that can happen because for a large majority of players, you have a peak and then you come over the peak, and how long do you want to ride that down? And I just seen a lot of guys, they just ride it down and they just end up hating it. And so I didn't want to leave hating it. So again, I had the injury. I just felt in my mind it was time. But if I could, I'd play forever. I'd play now if I could. And every now and then I'm stupid enough when I jump on a club game, because I enjoy the game. But like I was just saying before, there's a level and there's a standard, and it was starting to. I was just starting not to be able to meet that standard, or not to the standard I needed to be at. So it's a hard decision, but it was the right decision. In terms of transitioning, it's really difficult. It's a difficult thing to do. But for me, I was fortunate that, again, Glenn Delaney, who got me over there, he was coaching at a team. He just got a new coaching role. He knew I wanted to go into coaching. And just as fate had it, I sort of announced my retirement halfway through the premiership, like just saying, I'm going to retire at the end of the season, just so I could focus on playing. And, probably a couple of weeks after that, he gave me a call and said, we've got a role here. And I just thought, well, keep busy. And so I transitioned into something else straight away. But in terms, I think it took me a good couple of years to really actually fully, because, beyond, when I was coaching, game day, I hated being in the shed around the players. I hated it because I just got the feelings of wanting to play. So it takes it, because you always back. Like I said, you got to be able to back yourself. You back yourself, you can play, but you can't. So, and everyone has different experiences, but that was for me. So I was very fortunate. I had a new goal, so a new purpose straight away. But I haven't heard anyone personally say, it's an easy transition.
I remember, I think it was, Sean Johnson. He said one thing he'll forget was, running out onto Mount Smart and just hearing, all the fans, cheering, all that sort of thing. Would you say, those sort of experiences will made it worthwhile? All the bumps and the bruises and the hard moments. Like, what was that like as a rugby player and as a professional athlete, running out to big crowds and big atmospheres in Europe? And
oh yeah, it's awesome. It's what makes it, like it's like an adrenaline. It's like, you're running out to I think the largest I played a game, it's called Mandela Stadium, after the Football World Cup, and we had 90-something thousand. But then you can play, like I remember my first test match in Munster, and that was loud, playing against at Loftus, a real hostile crowd when they're shaking your bus. But like they're all different. Like early on Super Rugby, when you play the South African games, like that'd be what I'd imagine closest to a football game. Like you're taking the bus, to the game, and they're banging on the bus. They're out there throwing stuff. It's real hostile, and you're just on the bus. Oh, this is awesome, man.
They're crazy, eh? They're just so passionate and they love the game, and that's all what it is, eh? They just love the game, really. So
like they're into you before the game. So the South Africans are great. Like they're into you, everything up to it, and then after it, you'll be walking outside and they're cooking you on the braai and offering you a meat and a beer. So so the atmosphere is awesome. Like, but I think it's just more for me. It was like, and like everyone will have a different what they like, but towards the end, some days you do anything not to be sore, but now some days I'll do anything to be sore, I miss the contact,
What was your first coaching role?
So my first coaching role was, I started with the scrum. because it's an area I know well. And then I was also doing some defense, picking up other roles. And, that was I think I'm into my 5th year coaching now. So now I do the forward. So I do a whole line out scrum, a whole heap of different stuff. But early on, the hardest transitioning into coach is not really, rugby. You just got to know how to coach it. You got to learn how to coach it. And again, it's sort of that can be quite frustrating, because you're used to doing. Now you've got to learn sort of the art of teaching. So that's been a real good challenge. I enjoy that part of it. It's a real it's definitely engaging and challenging, and everyone's a bit different. And I was very fortunate to start my coaching career in Europe because, like I said, there's a lot of games. So I had a lot of games to coach. But I also had a lot of different nationalities. Like I was coaching the Welsh, and in that team we had New Zealanders, we had Pacific Islanders, we had you have a real mix, and that's probably something I enjoy about Europe too. And now I'm in Japan. Different culture again. We've got people from South Africa, Australia. Can't speak the language. I've got a coach through an interpreter. It's just so I enjoy the coaching. First role started off small. Now I've got more roles as I've not that I know more. It's just I've got the ability to teach more.
Yeah.
How long have you been in Japan then?
So this is my 2nd season. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You're enjoying it over there? Quite different.
Oh yeah, it's different
to the UK.
It's different to the UK. I'm gonna lie. I think my genes, my genetics, tend better towards to Europe. But Japan's been it's been good. Like I don't think I've been anywhere. Like I travelled a lot around Europe, and I think Japan, like culturally, it's the biggest change.
Yeah.
So that's enjoyable, and I'm coaching and finding different ways to coach and communicate, and that's it's a good challenge.
Do you find the language barrier quite hard, or is it just something that you're used to now? Or
I think the hardest thing is it's just a bit harder to connect with the players because a lot of coaching isn't just we're having a meeting or a training. Like that's quite formal, I guess.
Yeah.
When I was in Wales coaching, I thought a lot of my best coaching time was, between sessions in the gym or if the guys were in the cafeteria, and you're sort of just picking up on them with little conversations and you sort of you get a bit more of a feel for their personality and sort of sort of how they're feeling and coping with things. So that bit's a bit harder in Japan. But again, it's good challenges. Just got to find a different way to get what you need.
Yeah.
Moving back to your career, your playing career, and your probably your prime career. Who did you find? Obviously, you might have a different answer. Being a front row forward, you might want to name a front rower, but who did you find was the best player you played with, and the best player you played against across the whole career? Pretty hard question. I know you played with some of the most greatest players ever, but
it's hard to go who's the hard, because everyone's hard at that level. Some of the guys I found the hardest weren't because they were the best. They just might have been not a good matchup. Rather than talking scrummaging, it might have just been a difficult matchup. Or some of them, you come up, especially in Europe, you're coming up against some of these props. They might come out of Georgia or Romania, and they just freaking got this country freaking just I don't know.
Yeah.
They just got this different strength, and they just come from a weird, different sort of angle or different technique that can be quite challenging. But the best would be. I usually just say my brother. I don't just say my brother. I say my brother. The reason being is because we trained together a lot. We did all of our pre-season training together. All Blacks, Crusaders. We did a lot of our off the field training stuff together, and we competed against each other a lot. So we're competing. So I think having that competition, but like having really good competition, helped a lot. Because you're only really as good as your training partner or the competition you're exposed to. So, I was fortunate with my brother. On a day off, hey, Owen, let's go and lift in the gym, or hey, let's go out in the park and do some extra scrummaging work, or let's do some tackling. Or every time I did that, I did that with someone that was world class. So that helped a lot,
Would you say that's played a big factor in the likes of the Ioane brothers, Savia brothers, the Franks brothers, the Whitelocks? You reckon that the McKenzie brothers, just that competition, from a young age, and just having, you say, a great player to train with?
Yeah, I think so. There's got to be something in it, because competition makes you better. You're exposed to it. So once you get into game day, I've been training against, Whitelocks or the Barretts. I've been training against, that their game of rugby in the backyard isn't the same as other games, but you know what I mean? Like, it's just you're at a different level already, and you're just mucking around outside. But that might be hundreds of hours of extra training or playing rugby time, and that does have a definitely does have a benefit. But in terms of I think we'll both, I would both say we're fortunate in that way, because everything we do it together, and we'll be pushing. If we're lifting the weights, we're pushing against each other, conditioning, like I said, down the field. And also we were very lucky too, because at Linwood, the guy who helped me and Owen the most off the field in terms of our rugby skills was a coach called Scott Hansen. Now, Scott Hansen is the All Blacks attack coach. So at the time, if we're going down to do our field session, well, I'm doing a field session with Owen, who's world class, and Scotty was on his journey to coaching, but now he's a world class coach. Mm-hmm. So we didn't know that at the time. Well, we knew Scotty would be a world class coach, but if you're going back years, we're just out there training, but we just had good people helping us.
How much of an injustice do you think it is that no prop has ever been nominated for World Rugby Player of the Year? Do you think props are just a bit underappreciated, or?
No, not really. Like, here's the thing that people forget about like professional sport. It's entertainment.
Yeah.
It's entertainment. Rugby is a team sport. So how do you pick out any one person in a team sport? You name the best guy in the world, and I'll name everything he needs around him to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But I get it. Like, it's entertainment, and people want to be entertained. And you're picking out guys. Well, you're picking out the guys, who are in positions to do stuff like that. Look, freaking, maybe scrums isn't the most sexiest thing. To some people it is, but in Europe,
I think it is.
Not that much.
Me too.
I mean, so I get it. Like, you gotta have personalities in the game. Like, you can't if there's a team of 30 odd people. There's got to be personalities that people can relate to. People want to watch. People want to go see. So
exactly.
That's not an injustice. Like, if you're in a good team, and you're part of a team, you know everyone needs everyone. Like, you know, I was lucky enough to be in some good scrums. I was only as good as the lock behind me, the hooker I was with. Everyone in that scrum can't scrum by yourself. It's 8. Defence, well, you need a whole defensive line. Can't make all the tackles. But yeah, it's entertainment, so I get it. You gotta have people to put on show, to promote, for kids to want to, you know, emulate and stuff like that. They don't want to emulate going and doing a crouch bind set. Me and Owen did. It's a small niche, you know.
Yeah.
Just the question regarding a bit of the current day. What's your thoughts on the way the current All Blacks are tracking? Do you have any thoughts on the whole international players being able to play for the All Blacks? Like, do you have any? I'm sure you might have heard a bit about this in the last couple of days. You know, regarding the likes of Richie Mwanga, Shannon Frizzell, sort of players playing in Japan. What's your opinions on again how the All Blacks are tracking, and do you think we need players like that? How do you see the whole picture?
Yep. So in terms of look, opinions. I think opinions are great around whether things are going good or bad or whatever, because it comes back to the point of what's entertainment. And if you're watching something, you want to be entertained, you want to go talk to your mates and have opinions and whatever. So I think we should all be more open up to opinions, and you know, it's not an attacking thing. You just have an opinion, and
yeah, definitely.
Why you switch and watch. You know, you want to talk. That's what you want to talk about, and opinions are good. I think everyone wants results now in sport, and especially with the All Blacks, which is great. I think that's one thing that's helped the All Blacks keep at such a high standard as the expectations. They're in their first year. Things don't change overnight. So I think next year is going to be the time when you can see, like, truly see what they've tried to implement.
Yeah.
You know, potentially, you know, what sort of players they're going to have. You probably see more of the direction. So I think that's you know, that's as. For me now, as someone who's you know, a fan, as a spectator, and someone who wants to be entertained, that's what I'm interested in and talking about. You know, let's see their flair, let's see their take on it. So that's what I'm interested in seeing from next season.
Yeah,
I think this year, you know, even though Razor and his group, you know, they got the All Blacks. Yeah, they don't. There's not a lot of coaching time at international. That's one of the tougher things. Again, it's different to club rugby. I think they had some camps, but before, you know, the first England test, they're together for 2 weeks, and then you're into England tests, and then they go back, and then they come back for another couple of weeks leading into tests. So now they've had this window of time to get in what their core beliefs, their foundations, their structures are in. I think next year's the year you see where it's heading, and you can probably have a bit more of a idea of where it's going, whether you like it, you know, whether it's for you or it's not.
And just regarding your overseas players, like, again, do you think we need them, or do you think that's not the way forward? Like, how do you look at it from a coaching perspective, and a former All Black, and as you say, a fan now?
Yeah, I'm coming from the point of, I suppose, from my era, you didn't, and I would like to see it happen. And the reason being would be, I want to hear first how you're going to develop players in New Zealand. Like,
yeah.
So how do we develop players in New Zealand? Because, and it's not just that easy for players to go overseas. I think it's a lot harder than people realise, because when you go overseas, well, someone overseas is employing you. Yeah. They're going to want you to be playing the best for them. And, okay, there is an international window, so you've got to be released to go back and play for your country. But then you're going to go straight back and play again. And clubs overseas, they're not just going to take anyone, and they can't take anyone. Like Japan, you can only have so many foreigners. There's different classes of, of eligibility. Europe, can they take everyone? I don't think so. I don't think it's. I don't know if it's the answer, but so I'm open for my mind to be changed, and again, that's part of sport for us to have a debate. But my main one would be, well, how you develop players in New Zealand. But then again, coming back to entertainment, and let's talk about Super Rugby. Well, if I'm paying my subscription to watch Super Rugby, I want to see the best guys in New Zealand play against each other. So when I switch on, I want to see them go head to head. So when the Crusaders are playing the Hurricanes, or Hurricanes are playing the Blues, I want to see their All Blacks go against their All Blacks. And then I have a discussion with my mate who I'm watching the game with, going, well, I think he should be in the All Blacks, or he's playing better. That's the discussion I want to have. I also want to have the discussion if there's a young player coming through, and if there's a young 10 coming through, and this week he's playing against Damian McKenzie. Well, then let's see how he goes up against Damian McKenzie or a young 7. Well, let's see how he stacks up against Aria Sevilla. Now, if they're not playing in the country, what's my motivation to watch Super Rugby?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
And
even go and watch European rugby.
Yeah, and even as a gauge, I think it's, again, position for position, it's hard to compare, but we know the levels of rugby is different around the world, and it's hard to get a good gauge on a player. If you're watching, as you say, a D-Mac versus a Moanga, right in front of you, you get a good gauge, but it is hard to compare apples with oranges. You've got Richie playing in Japan, and in Japan you've got 3 or 4, 5 teams that are extremely good, but there's 2 or 3 teams that maybe aren't quite at that level yet. And it can be harder to compare. Quality of players across different leagues, and I do find it an interesting one because we've got class players overseas, and that's what New Zealand Rugby does. We produce talent everywhere, but it's the whole thing of do you want to what do you want to give up to be an All Black? That's always a debate. You give up a lot of opportunities overseas. Less travel, as you say, but that's the sacrifice players like you made for those years to be All Black. So.
Yeah. I don't feel like for myself I gave up anything. Like the first All, you have the dream of playing for the All Blacks first from a young age. You don't even think about money and stuff at that age. But you do need to factor that stuff in because you have families and you've got to support yourself post rugby and stuff. But it was never given up everything. I just made the decision. It was time to go, and that was my decision. Look, they can get paid more overseas. It's a bigger market. You're comparing Europe with New Zealand. New Zealand's a small market. Japan, if you're in a club in Tokyo, these clubs are $1 trillion businesses.
Yeah.
Well, you look, I'm at a Mitsubishi. And they make frickin' rockets. They make everything. In Europe, it's just a bigger market. So there is money over there. I think I'd like to see them think outside the box around some of the stuff. I think a lot of players, it isn't always about money, but I think there's other incentives to stay in New Zealand. It isn't all pros when you go overseas. There's time away from family. You're in a different, you're in a different culture that might not be for you. So there's got to be other ways to incentivize players to stay, and other countries have them. So I think there is. I'd like to see it debated more, maybe thought through a bit more. But I think the big questions for me to sort of summarise what I've said is, for me, how do we develop players in New Zealand? Because we have to keep developing players. And entertainment. What convince me to watch Super Rugby if the best guys aren't going to be playing it. That would be my two. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
Well, even to what Ben was saying before, like I think it was I'm a huge Chiefs fan. Dane McKenzie, favourite player, whatever. When he went to Japan in 2022, yeah, it was harder to get so into it as previous years and the year after. Like you're watching your favourite player out there, and you know every touch he has on the ball, you're into that, you know. And what you say, you know, like I want to watch All Blacks. I want to watch the best players in the world go at it with each other, and we don't. I think we're getting not robbed of that, but as you know, rugby fans who I just want to watch the best in the world go at it. Yeah, it's. I personally would love to see Damien play against Richard Mo'unga week in week out. You know, that's the goal. You know, those are the best rugby players on the planet at the moment. So definitely food for thought.
Frank's brother's gym in Christchurch. So you guys, yourself and Owen, ran that gym together for a number of years.
Yeah, we actually ran it. We ran it for a while. Man, how it come about was me and Owen we're just. I think we're rooming together, and we go, we should have a gym. I think we thought more just for me and him training, and then we actually just leased a warehouse, a small warehouse, and ordered some equipment with no sort of plan or anything. Dad had been doing some stuff. It was called CrossFit at the time. It was pretty new at that stage, and then we sort of built that over a period, and that was a fun thing to do when we were playing. Then it sort of got away from us a bit once Dad started working with doing another line of work, and me and Owen are both overseas, so we wrapped it up. But it's something I've thought about. I wouldn't mind maybe see the space. Wouldn't mind having another crack at it at some stage. But.
It seemed to be quite successful. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely early on. Like again, we were sort of part of the whole CrossFit thing, and it was new, and that was sort of popular at the time. So, so it was good. But like I said, it sort of just fitted in with stuff me and Owen did. We had a great time with it. We had some good members, and again, back to our pre-season, I think there's CrossFit. They did like a 2 or 3 part documentary on it, but we actually in our pre-season, because we had a lot of police and some army people, part of our members, and me and Owen would go down to the beach with Scotty, with a couple other players. Ash Dixon would come down, and he played at the Highlanders for a long time. He's over in Japan. And then members would come down, so some of the bigger army and military guys would come down, and they'd help us, and we'll be doing live tackling on the sand, ball carriers, everything. We'll go at it pretty good. So they'd come and help us with our lifting and training, and it was cool. It was a good time.
It would have been quite a sight for someone going for a beach walk first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
10-some there.
Yeah, never actually thought of that, but
I've seen across the internet you get your stories and your various articles. But what was at your prime, at your peak, and when you were just at it? What was your top squat?
I think the most I did in season was 270 in season. Then one pre-season, I just I had a longer pre-season again off the back of it might have been after that 2009 when I had more time in the gym, and I got up to a 300. But most times in season, look, I was quite lucky as in why not lucky? The best way. I enjoyed training. I just enjoyed it. I still enjoy training now. So it's good to have something that's part of your job that you really enjoy. So, I know me and Owen always look forward to that sort of stuff, and we did some different early on. Really fortunate again, had a good sort of exposed to some good training and learned all the techniques and stuff right from early on. And then, it's become a bit of a strength because I wasn't always the biggest for my position. So, I need to make sure technically I had to be really good, and, I had to have a better strength level sort of to balance up the size that I didn't have. But, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the strength, the gym, and this stuff. Still do it now.
Good job.
How many times did you play against Owen? And locking horn.
It must have been. So I suppose just when I went to the Hurricanes. So we must do. 4 or 5 times, I guess.
How did you feel about that, like personally, and even your parents, and like was that? It's just rugby's rugby. Just go at it.
Yeah. Like I said, we always train. We're like, even if we hadn't played against each other, like we always like even if you're in the same team, you'll be doing scrums against each other. You do opposed sessions against each other. But for me, anyway, pretty natural. You're always competing against each other. Wasn't a big thing, but it's probably. No, so it wasn't, it didn't bother me at all. I don't think it bothered Owen. So.
Yeah, no, it's good.
So there was some interesting conversations over the kitchen table with you two and your folks over the years, especially when you're competing together. And
no, not too bad. Like, anyone knows our family, when, not a lot of big talkers in it. We can easily sit in silence. We probably just sat in silence more than.
Are you guys naturally competitive, or?
We're definitely competitive, but I think I don't know. Everyone's got a different sort of what they think's competitive. I have been surprised over the years the amount of people that go to me, do you get on with your brother? I was, we get on fine. I can't stand my brother. Then I was surprised I started to get on with my brother. But I'm definitely competitive. But like I don't take stuff that's irrelevant competitive. I'm not gonna play a game of cards and freaking stuff if I don't win. People that tell me that that's competitive, I'm like, well, not really. I like competitive. Yeah, I'm competitive, but I'm not. I don't take everything as seriously as I did playing a test match or a Super Rugby game.
Yeah.
What would you say would be your fondest playing memory, like overall? I guess. Yeah, just fondest playing memory overall.
Yeah, and like your proudest moment over the years. Can you pinpoint?
Or just a moment that just gave you that you just can't, you'll never forget. Saying that it's just always stuck with you, and will always be saying that you'll.
I think 2015 final will always stay with me because again, winning the World Cup, but also that was my last. I was very aware, like I said, I knew I was finishing that chapter, so. And I sort of made a bit more of a conscious decision, probably from about 2013 to, take everything in. That 2015 World Cup is good memories. Really, really enjoyed that. A lot of fun memories. Through that whole period, there was a lot of guys. There was a number of guys moving on at the end of that. So it was nice to have that, but and stuff. It isn't always like just because it was the All Blacks. They're always the fondest memories. Like I remember one of my first years at Tasman. I can't remember the year. It might have been 2010 or 8, maybe 2008. I can't remember, but Todd Blackadder was the coach, and we had our first away win, and we made the quarterfinals, and we lost our quarterfinals, but that was a really good year because I think there was only 2 or 3 of us that were professional. Everyone else was from club rugby, just local guys, and we just had a good team atmosphere, and we achieved some good things. I think even though we lost in the quarter final, I think we probably maxed out our potential, and that was a really enjoyable season. So.
Yeah,
That's good.
All right. Well, I think we'll end on this one. And what I want to ask is, what are 3 things in life Ben Franks is thankful for?
Health, family. Should I know? Yeah, I don't know. Health, family, friends, I guess.
Beautiful.
Beautiful. Well, we just want to really thank you so much for coming on, Ben. We really appreciate the time you've given us. We know you're a real busy man. It all means a lot to us, and honestly, you can't thank you enough, mate. You've been a great All Black, great rugby player for so many years. You've transitioned well into coaching, and just look forward to following your journey more still, mate.
Yeah. Again, thanks for having us, and no problems at all, and all the best with your podcast.